we have to look at signals. Never look at trends, you're too late if you look at trends. So look at what people are discussing, talking about, arguing about. Is there a problem we can solve? A trend is there, it's happened. For me, a trend is going on, you see it. A signal is where you see some people have issues with something, but it's not turned into a solution yet.
Simon, I don't know if you know this. I'm a little pissed off with Luke and saying it.
Okay. So am I. I always am pissed off when Luke is saying it.
Yeah, you share an office with them.
I know.
Like, I really feel sorry for you.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I would think Hyundai has enough money to both pay your salary and give you a separate office.
Yeah, we chipped in together to try, but it didn't work.
So the reason why I'm angry at those guys is they've hid me from you.
Okay.
Well, you've been there 7 years now.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a liability, so they like to keep me undercover.
But here's the thing, that you have a very interesting history very few people have. You are pre-98 Bentley. You're Vickers Bentley.
Yep.
If anybody remembers that.
That was, I can only just remember because it was so long ago.
You're still paying the therapy bills, aren't you?
Well, I graduated the Royal College of Art in '91 and started back then with Bentley, worked for them for 10 years. And my daughter has just started at the RCA and she's studying architecture and is actually in the same building that I was 35 years ago, and on the same floor, in fact. And so she's on the 4th floor in the RCA, and so yeah, I came out of that school of amazing creative people. 91 year group, had some fantastic friends and colleagues who are in great companies around the world now. And yeah, knew Luke and sang up through that phase, Luke especially. Worked in Germany for 6 or 7 years, moved to China, and then had a conversation with Luke, and he said, look, Luke, could you come and work with us in Hyundai? And that was, I started 2017 for Hyundai in China.
So before you go to Korea, what was the impetus to go? Because you went from the Volkswagen version of Bentley, and then you went to Germany. What was the impetus to head over to China for Volkswagen at that point?
I'd done a short project back then in China, and I saw what was happening, what was happening, how it was growing, and it was such an exciting market for everything basically, and that the opportunity to go there was something I thought, well, we can see what's coming, and was involved in so much change and so much as the car business growing in China then. It was then Luke said back in 2016, would I be interested in coming to Hyundai in China first? And I was a couple of years for Hyundai in China, and then had a wonderful conversation just not far from here with Luke and Sangyup a couple of years later, where they said would I want to come over and work in the main studio with them. You know, if they told me then I'd have to share an office with them, I probably would have said no. but as it was one of the best decisions I could make. I never thought about it in terms of wanting to or not to live in Seoul. But what a fantastic opportunity to live and work in a fourth culture, and to get to understand a different culture and the challenges therein.
So let's step back a bit.
Yeah.
What was the first year you turned up in China?
I arrived in China 2008 as permanently living in China.
Okay, so let's go back to 2008, Simon. What were the 3 things that were exciting to you about? You said the market was exciting. What in particular?
Anytime you arrive there, having traveled overseas, you get back and things have changed. There's new buildings or new roads or new metro being built. It was moving along fast. The second thing was meeting incredible people in other industries who were usually there because there was growth. They were very open-minded and usually quite successful. So whether being Chinese or from overseas. So you met an incredible group of people whilst you were there. And the other thing, the acceleration in growth in the market. So there are lots of projects. We're doing lots and lots of new vehicles, and as a car designer, to be part of that and be part of that momentum was really a big learning experience, but great fun. Met lots of cool people, did lots of cool projects.
So now let's compare and contrast.
Yeah.
Now let's go to 2024, Simon.
Yeah.
What are 3 things that are exciting to you about the opportunity of being basically running a brand? That's what you're doing. Even though you share an office. What's exciting now as opposed to that 2008 Simon?
In my first conversation with Luke, he said to me, you know, Hyundai are extremely serious about the future. Extremely serious about turning from being an okay car company into a desirable car company. A desirable in terms of technology, quality, and so on. And that was a really interesting conversation. And I met the chairman when I was interviewing and got the feeling that where the company had been maybe 10 years ago was going to change enormously because of the investment in product, in technology, in software, in hardware, in design. And that felt like something that was really exciting to be part of. Coupled with that, I get to learn about a whole new culture. I go to a new country, a new culture. My wife is very open to culture and experiment. So we had a chance to go and get a feeling for a fourth culture.
So a huge point you brought up there. Luke had shared with you that Hyundai very, very serious about the future. I think everyone that kind of seen the growth, even from like 2009 to now, you couldn't even write a story like that. How would you compare that to the Chinese manufacturers in the market when you were there? What was different?
I think coming to Hyundai, there was already let's say a maturity about process and technology, which the Chinese companies are probably still searching for. Gives us an advantage to some extent, but a disadvantage on the other side. When you get big, you can slow yourself down because you're so big. And so the agility is really important for us to try and recapture, to be agile and use our whole brain power of the whole organization. And that's where in China, probably the companies, especially the startups, didn't exist then. They've come from zero, so they're extremely agile. And they have a very different level of government support compared to pretty much anywhere else around the world. There is a, in my view, a sort of protectionism around the domestic market. And what they also have in China is the 5-year plan. And so they go in one direction. They don't have an election and jump and go the other way, and another election go the other way. They're consistently going in one direction from a government perspective, which gives the local companies a very clear roadmap, and gave the population a clear roadmap in China in terms of electric vehicles. It was the statement of the future. And so everybody's very positive, whereas in other countries around the world, the government's trying to encourage, and it becomes a bit of a political discussion whether you drive an EV or an ICE car. And that was very different in China.
So has that changed at all? Because if you look at the market back in 2008, 2009, it's almost like they're drinking from a fire hose. And now there's a lot of penetration in multiple markets where, like, I think you and I would both agree, the European market, 20 years ago, if you said China's going to be a big player there, we'd laugh. But clearly that's changed. But is there a focus now that now we're a little bit more mature, do we slow down and focus on quality, or are they still, we need to drink from the fire hose?
My sort of little bit naive viewpoint is that you just can't keep going at that speed. You get to a level where things are saturated. And a lot of companies around the world arguably already there. And when you come from a low baseline, you've got a long way to go. So you can go very fast, but it's going to slow down. Just look at growth in China. How you cannot sustain double-digit growth because you can't grow more. And so there is a sort of a ceiling there. And so we'll see it, I think, slowing down. Our job is to always try and keep ahead, always try and innovate. So when we're watching every market around the world, trying to make sure our products are fitting the customer perspective perfectly. And that's how we keep ahead of any competition around the world, or we try to keep ahead at least.
So when you're focusing on a segment, like take Ioniq, let's go back to 2009, it was one car. It was the competitor to a Prius, and that was it. And now you literally have, 5 cars at this point? One of them is probably the best performance EV, full stop. And I am a Porsche guy saying this. Don't tell Luke I said that.
It's my daily driver. Ioniq 5N.
Good for you.
Yeah.
How do you approach what markets you want to get into with a sub-brand?
We have to look at signals. Never look at trends. You're too late if you look at trends. So look at what people are discussing, talking about, arguing about. Is there a problem we can solve? Obviously with battery electric vehicles, there was an opening there for something that was much more engaging.
Let me just interject. What's the difference between a signal and a trend?
A trend is there, it's happened. For me, a trend is going on, you see it. A signal is where you see some people have issues with something, but it's not turned into a solution yet.
So you're finding the problem, basically.
Basically, find the problem. You're finding signals of customer need for something. And there's a customer need, clearly, for a highly engaging electric vehicle, because that didn't exist. And our freaks of engineers decided, we've got electronic damping, electronic steering, electronic throttle, electronic regen. We can simulate stuff with that and get a simulation of an engagement which goes far and beyond. Even in just a normal EV mode, the engagement is so nice from Ioniq 5N. But then for old timers like me, maybe go into ignition mode and go up through the gears and down through the gears, it's so believable, and so it just makes you smile.
It's more than that. I will go so far as saying, and I have driven that car in Laguna Seca, it makes you be a better performance driver.
I think so too.
I think that is the flaw, actually maybe the feature of being a human. We need the oral
feedback.
Input.
Yes.
We need that.
Yes.
Not having it, like, I love a Porsche Taycan around a track, but God help you, man, that thing, it's like a snowplow. There's so much weight in the front.
The synchronization, I remember about 18 months ago, I was explaining to journalists at Goodwood Festival of Speed, trying to explain to them how that oral feedback is so perfectly synchronized to the driving experience that it makes you better. And it makes you a better EV driver. And
better driver.
Yes, a better driver. And they were like, nah, it can't be. And then they drove the car. Like, whoa. And I love to celebrate the fact that we have engineers who are crazy enough to try that. I respect the innovation, the creative thinking of that so much. And that we were able to work on that car from a design aspect, and deliver the car and winning World Performance Car.
When you were sitting in your office with Luke and saying, and someone first floated this idea to you that we're going to simulate a transmission and sounds of engines in an electric car, did you guys all laugh at each other?
No, we said try it. We were all on the same way. Well, we got to try that because the signals are there. The signals there. We can adjust all these things. It's all it's just software. And the point of having a system where you can have over-the-air updates and update, guess what else we could program for that system? There's the opportunity so big. We saw the opportunity straight away. I didn't believe it was going to be as good as it is. I didn't. But driving the car, it's in the wet or the snow, I know I can go to a different throttle mapping, which is all it is, the gear change. Usually I'll go up a few gears because I have less torque to the wheel. I have a more gentle power delivery, and in the snow or the wet, it gives me a very different handling performance, which is just remarkably effective and makes me a better driver, like you said.
So let's go back to I think the signal versus trend. It's a huge point. And I haven't heard it quite put in that way as succinctly. Does that come from your collective histories? Because if you think about it, Sang Yip, he probably had the hardest job. What did he work? 10 years trying to develop that Camaro. Then had to go to Bentley. Post Vickers.
Had to work with Luke.
And then had to work with Luke. But then you and Luke both had to work with companies that challenged with dollars and limited production runs. Is this difference between signal and trends, is that learning from the Lamborghinis and Bentleys of the world?
It could be. I mean,
meaning
as a designer,
pre-Volkswagen.
Sure. As a designer, you are most of the time designing something that's not for you personally. So you have to get under the skin of the person who will be spending the dollars on that. And that, you look for what turns them on. What connects to these customers, and those are signals from them about what their portfolio of cars are like, how they use the cars, where they go, how they want to show off or not, and those are just signals to give you an impression of how you want to design, and that's part of it. But that's the way I always see it. If you look at the film Incredible Mind, where he's drawing all these patterns on the walls, and things are popping off the wall at him, he sees stuff. Honestly, I feel part of what we do is the same. We see the whole thing, but you see that point and there and this, and we connect them. So, we can use that. There's something there that comes together in a briefing for a car. And for Ioniq 9, those signals of people needing the space, needing enough space, 3 rows, the signals of people who want to use least energy between A and B. And it's not all customers. We have a Palisade. We have a really good conventional sort of boxy SUV. We don't need another one. So what are the other mindsets? What are the lifestyles? What is the consumer-centric focus that we can create a unique SUV out of? And that's, I guess part of our backgrounds definitely brings that together. I think Sangyap's worked on, 27 different brands. He's got all that sort of feeling, and it's just amazing at finding those key points that make a difference. And I guess with experience, you look at everything and say, stop, what was that again? Pull it out, that's important. I remember many years ago in board presentations where you'd be sitting there and a board member would stop a presentation, stop that number, are you sure? And there's a whole page of numbers. And they go dig down and find a problem because something pops out at you and you recognize it. And I think all of us as designers are looking for that, something which creates a unique product. And for us in Ioniq 9, the overall shape, the overall streamlined nature of it. I mean, Ioniq 6 was our streamliner, but this car creating 3 seating rows and stretching the cabin, moving the cowl point forward, that beautiful acceleration where the high point is actually pretty much over the second row and down again behind the third row to get the interior space and for it to work functionally as an engineered vehicle in terms of drag and so on was really exciting and fun. And the signals of the shape, I mean, I talked about the pebble earlier, the smoothness, the smooth shape, the lack of extra features. Sangyap is somebody we talk a lot together about reduction, simplifying. Just get to the raw volume. It's much more difficult.
It's kind of like the first principles theory. When
Exactly.
you apply to physics or rocket
That's
ships.
It's back to basics. It's back to your first. What are the first principles of good proportion? What are the golden ratio? What do you get to? Long legs on a model on a catwalk, male or female, always has something good. The size of the wheel compared to the wheelbase, compared to the overhangs. That just is a learned aesthetic. What we tried here with a shorter hood made it more difficult. Because a learned aesthetic premium, long hood, long engine, big engine. But here we tried to make it work. We needed a faster windscreen to counteract the shorter hood, which then pulls the volume of the cabin rearwards, and that very fast screen, it's as fast as some sports cars.
I made a comment in my tech review of your car, which I just shot.
Yeah.
That so I'm a big believer in the Tesla Cybertruck, not because I'm a Tesla guy. I think you know this. I'm a 911 guy.
Yeah.
I think we will look back on the Tesla Cybertruck and say that was the first paradigm shift in automotive design that really took advantage of electric, and people bought it. People went for it. This car, and I'm not just saying this because we're sitting here, this is the first car from a conventional car manufacturer that picks up some of those cues by doing the short overhang and the very fast windscreen. To the point where it's a triangle front window.
That's right. Exactly that. Yeah. It's a triangular front window. Exactly that. And the high point is literally back in the middle of the rear door. We are taller than we needed to be. Normally when we have the engineer, design, discussion, dimensions, we are telling them we need to be higher. We need to be a taller car because we need to get that curvature, attach the airflow all the way over back to the separation line.
Did the engineers push back?
No. They
said
us.
yes.
Yeah, we have an engineering team that, Haewon Yang is the head of engineering, and his team. I've never worked with a team who is so supportive to try and do the new thing.
Is that always the case at Hyundai, or is there look, we know you're a crackpot from a farm in the southeast of England, and we don't want to hear from you anymore?
I would have to say, I think it's developed over the time whilst I've been there, and it's got to a point now where we have such a good relationship between the engineering team, the design team. Always we fight to get the costs down, the weight down. That's difficult, but the finding solutions, technical solutions part is honestly, in my career, it's never been this much fun.
Lightning round. If you were to compare that can-do, that the engineering team actually working with the design team, which you and I both know, hard to do. Comparing it to a Western car manufacturer, whether it be American or in your case you work in European, Are the Europeans at this point now this flexible to do this, or are they still very provincial?
I don't know because I don't work there anymore. But when I did work there, it wasn't like this.
It was very provincial at that point.
Yeah.
Okay. China. Back when you worked there, were they willing to be this fast, or were they provincial?
The Chinese in Hyundai and the Koreans in Hyundai in China were just like this, wanted to solve stuff.
I mean, but also
the Western
Volkswagen,
companies, no comment.
Okay. On that note, this is where we put a pin in the conversation, because you and I have very little time together. So we need more time together. So we have to talk. We have to have a conversation with Luke to make sure we get more time together.
No, we'll do that.
And we need to do it in his garage.
If he lets us in. Or if failing that, do it in my garage.
Okay. But
in Germany as well.
Okay.
Ja.
Sehr gut.
Nicht schlecht.
Okay, good man.
Das machen wir. Thank you, George.
Vielen Dank.
Good to meet you.
Bis später.
Gerne.